Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. We're here today with special guest, Donald Harold Young, who's here to share with us his new book, Finding God in Vegas. Well, thank you, Donald. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Finding God in Vegas, a Gen X Spiritual Awakening. Make sure to visit Don's website at donaldharoldyoung.com for more information and to be part of his community. Donald Harold Young was once living what many would call the American dream. As a highly successful pharmaceutical marketing executive, he had achieved wealth, status, and professional achievement. But beneath the surface, he was deeply unfulfilled. After a lifetime spent chasing happiness through materialism and worldly accolades, Don experienced a profound spiritual awakening that led him to surrender his heart to God and to love. So welcome to the show, Donald Harold Young.
Thank you.
What an honor it is to have you here and to talk about your new book. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I only chuckle because, much like me thinking that the center of my life should be around love and God, I really didn't think of myself as an author before, up until this point in the journey. But really, what inspired me to share this story with the world was, I realized that while it's a very personal story and we all have our own stories to share, there were these themes that kept coming across about shame and fear, about our values, and the values that we portray in this culture. And so I felt like this was a way for me to kind of give back and share my experience with other people that may be hurting, questioning whether or not they're worthy of love. Um, and so it really it kind of it came from the heart for sure in terms of what I wanted to share. I mean, at the end of the day, I want people to know that no matter how broken you may feel that you are, um, there's so much love in the world. It surrounds you, and you're always worthy of it. No person is so far gone that love is not a possibility in their life.
Well, I really like how you start this book and you talk about this period of really having this worldly success. And I think so many people can relate to that, but having such a deep spiritual emptiness. What was the moment you realized something had to change?
For me, I think the culmination came in just a series of events. Um, Everything from losing my job at 52, and like so many people, much of my self esteem was wrapped up in the work that I did. Um, with things, but was also kind of moving away from my family and support network. It was losing our beloved cat, who really was kind of our baby. Living through COVID, realizations. My professional career was as a pharmaceutical marketer, and I kind of came to the conclusion that I'm not really sure what I spent my entire life doing added anything to the world. In fact, maybe it did the opposite. So I think it was all these things that were kind of coming, happening at kind of intervals, but just kind of piled up at kind of a snowball on one another. Um, and then I think for a lot of people, you get to a certain point in life where usually it's in your 50s where you've had so much life experience and you're looking back on things and you're thinking, what was this all about? What has my life contributed to the world? And what am I leaving this world? Because we all will be leaving this world at some point. And and so for me, that really kind of was the realization, is that I realized I had built my life around um, beliefs that at the end of the day um, didn't really add any love to the world. And that's probably being generous with that assessment.
I think so many of us get into that track where we're told, go to school, get a good job, and then you do this job and you make good money and you keep doing that. We're just on this little hamster wheel track.
Yeah.
It's so difficult for people to get to a place where they can look at their lives and go, okay, I need to make a change and do something different. So I really commend you. It took great courage to do that.
Thank you. I didn't necessarily think that. I mean, once kind of had this spiritual awakening, I realized for myself, like, I can't go back to pharmaceutical marketing. So even though the thought of switching careers in my 50s um, seemed a bit unnerving, I just knew that I could never go back to kind of what I did. I had to find a new path for myself and the time that I have remaining here.
I think for most people, trying to figure things out in your 50s would be terrifying. I know it would be if I had to go
It
and
is.
restructure. I'd be like, "Ooh, where's a paper bag to breathe in now?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was, and again, I think it was just for myself the realization that I had in terms of what I spent my professional life about, in terms of marketing, branded drugs. Um, I just, I think if maybe I had been a nurse or a teacher or a firefighter, maybe I wouldn't have had kind of the ethical conflict that I did down the road. But I did, and I just knew that I had to choose a different path with the time that I have left.
Well, I think it's so brave. And I'm just going to keep saying that through our discussion here. And one of the things I found so striking about your journey is you made this major move from Chicago to Las Vegas during a point, it was really kind of a turning point in reconnecting with your faith. So, what was that like?
Um, I you know, it's funny because I in the book I talk about my kind of ongoing marathon to run from God, um, and when I mean God, I really mean love, in the fullest sense of the word. Um, I, I look back on it now and a couple things. One, I'm grateful that we made the move to Vegas in 2019 and we weren't in downtown Chicago living in a one-bedroom condo during COVID. I think it would have been tremendously difficult and stressful. It was also during that time that our cat passed as well. So, I just I think it just would have been so. I'm so grateful that I was kind of led to the desert here. But the other piece with it was just that a lot of my support network, family and friends, I left all behind in Chicago. But I just felt that I was compelled. I needed to do a change. I needed to find kind of some new direction in my life, and so like so many people have done in their life. I went west. I moved to the desert, and I tried to, you know, in many ways, it was about stripping everything down in my life that I thought I had faith in. My job status, wealth, in our institutions. Um, and I think that being here forced me to really confront, um, what do I believe in? What at the end of the day is my life about, and how do I want to be remembered for my time here?
You describe in your book Rediscovering God in the Desert. What was it about the desert experience that
Mm.
really opened your heart again?
I think for me the desert is. I find it beautiful. It appears so desolate, so empty. I mean, look, I grew up in the Midwest, so I'm used to four seasons and lots of greenery. Water is more common than than it is here for sure. Um, so there was just something about that beauty, that starkness. I mean, when you look at a mountain that's been there, and Vegas is surrounded by mountains for tens of thousands of years. I mean, it gives you perspective. Like, wow, we really are here for a short amount of time. So what is this about? The other thing I'll say about the desert is that while it's so stark and so, I think, beautiful and it looks lifeless, there is life going on all around it. We don't see it in the ways that we see it in maybe other settings, by the ocean or in a forest or something like that. Um, but it's there, and I think it lays there's like this starkness, and it kind of lays bare everything that you know we surround ourselves in life in terms of comforting ourselves.
So, what role did your family, especially your parents and Pete, play in shaping your understanding of love and faith?
I mean, I only chuckle because God bless my parents for sure. With everything I put them through in some ways. Um, my parents really they are, I mean, the role models in terms of um, how to live a righteous life. And when I mean a righteous life, I mean a life that's, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, sort of ethos with things. Um, so my parents, they raised us, in a very kind of loving Christian home, but like a lot of kids, I had to find my own path and rebelled. What I will say though is that when I think that they help plant and nourish that seed, and then even though I came from a very kind of religious background, um, I got so far away from that, but there's a certain point in my life where I was like, no, I need to go back to kind of what I know. And when I thought about, who in my life have been, who I want to emulate. I mean, my parents are at the very, very top of the list for sure. And then, with my partner, you know, again, many things, but one of the things that I admire about him is he is a teacher, and I see the difference that he makes every day in kind of these kids' lives and with what they do. So, uh, you know, I think, and I talk about this in the book. We're love is relational. Like this idea of love is just something by itself. It's incongruent because love has to love something to be love, if that makes sense. So anyway, that's with my parents.
Well, and so to kind of dovetail with this, so you touched on this a little bit, but your upbringing in the church, did that
Mhm.
give you the support and challenge your journey towards a deeper relationship with God?
I think it did eventually. I think for me, growing up, well, we came from, and again, we were raised in a fairly liberal, mainstream um, organization. So, I was deeply involved. Went to church. I actually went to seminary as well. Um, I think, though, as I struggled with being gay as a teenager and what to do with that. Um, as liberal as my world was, I also know that the world wasn't going to be very accepting of someone who was gay. And this is in the 1980s. So this is, a while back some. Um, and so I think at that point, I was just like, I don't know what to do with this. And it kind of made me close the door in terms of anything with regard to organized religion, and honestly, in anything regard to spirituality, because um, I had spent so much of my young life having the idea of God and love um, kind of used as a, I don't know, a wedge issue, a club, you know, a performance that I needed to do, um, when I didn't understand that love, is grace as well. So it got me kind of back to there, but it's in many ways the prodigal son. I had to kind of go on that path and search for it, um, and and find my way back. But I do know that there were key moments in my life, especially when I struggled with thoughts of deep thoughts of depression, um, that there was enough uh, faith and trust in this in God, that I knew that taking my life was um, was not something that love is about in any way whatsoever.
Well, we're so glad that you're here to share this story because it's such a profound one, and you're calling for people to reconnect with themselves in a deeper way is something that I think moves so many people.
Yeah, I think, I mean, that's my hope. We live in a culture that just doesn't put a lot of credence in this idea that there's something more than just kind of the physical world. And I think, which is crazy when you think about, this is a recent phenomenon in all of human history. I mean, humans have always believed they were both physical and spiritual creatures, regardless of location and time or culture or anything like that. And I think it does something when we reduce ourselves to just objects. It it negates our value as humans, and I think it robs us of the fullness of life and its experience, because it's not. Again, there's a reason why people have had spiritual encounters, talk about spirituality, talk about kind of the world in terms of ways that are, I think, so much more liberating and empowering than reducing us to consumers. At best, that's the human is not. We're not just here to consume stuff. We're here to, I think, at the end of the day, um, create love more than anything else.
So let's touch on the subtitle of your book called A Gen X Spiritual Awakening. Can you share about that with us?
Yeah, I tried. Well, so as a Gen Xer, I tried to use cultural references and little winks to the reader that would relate to someone who's Gen X. And so if you're Gen X, you're probably in your 50s. So you're probably thinking, okay, what does this all mean? And so I wanted to write it in a way that's relatable and understand. I think, I don't want to say safe, but comforting maybe is a better word to use with things. So I tried to use language that would allow the reader to be like, okay, yeah, I get his experience. So, for example, I think I make a reference to, because I'm such an introvert, um, eight is enough, but well, nine if Alice is with, so reference to the Brady Bunch. Or I think there's another line where I talk about, an ancient 80s summer when video killed the radio star. I mean, look, that was I don't know about you, but that was the first video I ever saw on MTV when they actually did music videos. Um, so I think I wanted to, and I think every generation needs to find language or find ways to kind of talk about their own spiritual awakening. So I wanted to give it a context that was safe, easy, accessible, relatable, and so that's kind of why I chose the Gen X. Especially, Gen X is so There's kind of the baby boomers, and then there's just kind of us, and then they go to the, other generations. And so I just feel like that as a generation Gen X, like, um, we haven't really shared our story to the same extent that maybe other generations have done. So I wanted to craft something for, you know, talking about my generation, so to speak, to quote the Who.
Well, in your book, you write that God is love. How has that understanding changed you over time?
um, I'll still say it's still changing me, because when I talk about love, I talk about it being as, um, words and actions that are always in the best interest of all people, and you don't expect reciprocity in return, even in the most hostile of circumstances. So I know that's a bit of a mouthful. You could look at do unto others, but when you think about, um, love, or God is love in terms of a relationship, that for me opens up so many more doors and a much richer experience than thinking of God as just kind of a creator who's disconnected from, his creation, or a lawgiver who's there to judge. When I think of God in terms of love, it becomes very relational. It becomes, more real. It becomes like, it's my north star in terms of, like, okay, how do I treat people? How do I interact with the world? And if you have this mindset, like, this, we're here to create love, it really does upend everything about your life and how you approach your life in terms of your relationships with people, your relationships with the planet, with animals. It just, I think it's how we are intended to be. Um, and I truly believe that at the end of the day, love is, um, it's what carries, it's what carries the world. I mean, it's life, it's peace, it's the very best of who we can be as creatures.
Fear and shame show up often in your memoir. What helped you begin to heal those patterns?
Well, if I truly believe that love is at the center of the universe, then I know love doesn't want us to live in fear, because, with fear, there's this idea of punishment or something wrong. And I don't think that at the end of the day, that is, what love is about. Even when a parent has to, or out just in my instance, even when a cat parent has to reprimand their child, their kitty cat, they don't do it in a way that's, I'm doing it because I care, and I don't want that cat to get in trouble or hurt themselves. And so I think if you have that point of view of, like, well, this isn't about fear or trying to diminish the person, um, then I think that that's, how you think about love. And this idea of shame, I don't think that love ever sets us up to fail. So I think that, we're we're born who we're supposed to be born to be. So, and that that love shows up in so many different ways. I can find love in the joy of an experience. I can find love by looking at the sun. I can find love in terms of playing with my cat. Like, it's all there. So I think shame and fear are just so far away from love. And yet, this is what I think the culture pushes. It pushes these ideas of shame and fear. I mean, think about social media. I mean, so much of it is about, just go on, look at YouTube or any social media channels. It's like, it, so many people lead with fear or shame in terms of what they're trying to share with the world, and I think that that is about as far away from love that you can get. And even if you're saying, I'm, this is in the name of God, or or religion, or whatever. It's like when you start using fear as your lead in, then I think it's about as far away from love as you can get.
In your book, you talk about the tension between material success, which you've talked about, and the spiritual well being. What guidance would you give to others caught in that struggle?
The guidance I would give is that, at the end of the day, all your when you look back on your life, or look at your life currently, you know, what is it about? Is it about stuff, or is it about um, good, healthy relationships with people? You know, s- Stuff may make your life more comfortable, but it will never bring you comfort. Because it's, we get on this kind of hamster wheel, and it will never be enough for us. Um, so I, I I would just urge people to think about, what is your life about? Um, what do you want it to be about? And if you were to not be here, how would people remember you? Would they even remember you? Um, and what are you leaving the world? Are you leaving a mess, or are you leaving something else that is going to maybe add value or help others? Um, I don't know if I mean it's a great question, Marianne, and I don't know if we all get there. I want to believe that, but I think we've all met people that, for some reason, cannot open themselves up to other possibilities about how to see life besides just their own comfort.
Everyone's so used to the little box that they're in, it's really hard to see beyond that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's scary too. To come out of your comfort zone, to question everything that you believed in, um, and to say, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't have all the answers. I mean, there's I do know that the path to love always starts with humility and self-reflection, and that can be very, very terrifying, especially if our whole identity is built around something that isn't true.
So let's talk about humility for a moment. And how would you define true humility after experience both privilege and loss?
I think humility is, giving yourself, and quite frankly, it's very liberating. Um, is giving yourself the freedom of knowing that you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be right about everything. You won't always succeed in everything that you do, or show up in your best way possible. But because I believe God is love, love never abandons you, at all. And so you continue to, find the strength, or find the ways to add love to the world. But you don't have to be right all the time, and you don't have to speak all the time. And sometimes, there's a lot that can be learned by just being quiet, um, with things. But when you have this sense of humility, of knowing I don't have to know everything or be right about everything, it really is liberating, because there's this huge weight that comes off of you. And you realize that the joy is in the discovery. It's not in the being the right, it's in the discovery of, finding love in the world.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Now, as you were writing this book, was there a memory or chapter that was the hardest for you to write?
I mean, there were several chapters that were really hard to write, and I tried to um, I tried to layer the book so stories that were a little more intense, like um, when I was dealing with some very significant depression issues, or when I realized I was gay and I didn't know what to do about that at 12, um, or the passing of, our cat. I mean, those stories sometimes I still cry when I read them. Not always, but but sometimes I do. Um, So I just think that there's been several with it, but I have really come to the belief that life is bittersweet, and I think it's supposed to be both those. I think it's supposed to be bitter at times and sweet at times. Partly it's just that way the sweetness is so sweet then when you taste it when you've had so much bitterness, for sure. Um, but I think that's part of the the experience. Is part of growing. It's part of understanding that. Again, I think it's also part of understanding the power of love. That love is so deep and so embedded into the fabric of the universe that um, you can find ways to let go of it. Of times that are terrible. Um, because you also know that you're not alone in terms of the pain that you're feeling. That literally the whole universe feels your pain and your joy.
Your book addresses cultural lies like believing that we don't matter and that nothing we do matters.
Mhm.
Which of those lies do you see the most harming to people today?
I think the most harmful one is that your life doesn't matter, um, that you're just a thing, and and I think that especially in a culture that's deeply materialistic, um, that that's what shows itself up. So, um, we're not humans; we're consumers. Everything about us is about becomes a product, something to commoditize. Um, our experience, our life, um, everything that we do. Uh, I think that. It's the most dangerous, and if you think of yourself as just an object, then you know that opens up a whole path of not so good things in terms of, well, if you're an object, do you have any choice, do you have any free will? um, Nothing you do can make a difference in the world. I mean, it leads you down a really dark path of nihilism at the end of the day. um, because again, if you're just an object, then you don't matter, here today, gone tomorrow. And that's I think that's about as far away from love as you can get.
I would completely agree, and it has me really thinking because you've had such a profound journey. How have your experiences changed your view of organized religion versus personal spirituality?
Mm, it's a great question. Look, I organized religion is, I think, like any other human institution, it can do some really good things and not so good things, especially I think as humans. When we scale in nature in terms of becoming part of a huge conglomerate, a company, or an institution, we feel like, well, we're just a cog in the machine, so to speak. I think when we have that thought, again, we're reducing ourselves to an object, a cog in a machine, and we're reducing everyone else around us to just kind of being objects. So I think for me, what I'm trying to do is find the balance in terms of faith communities. I think are really important because again, love is relational. So spirituality isn't, well, at the end of the day, it's a journey of one. You're not alone on this journey. And so I think you need to find other folks that um, can be supportive of that and find that with you. And, I definitely think it can be found within organized religion. Um, but, I think there are other outlets for spirituality as well in terms of um, being creative. Writing is one thing, volunteering your time, in terms of giving back to other folks that are struggling on their path for whatever reason. So I think it's finding that balance. My my criticism of organized religion is really it's a criticism of any human institution that kind of loses its way. I just feel like so much of it has been got caught up into something that has nothing to do with love, but more about power or status or wealth or control. You know, the list unfortunately can go on, but so I'm trying to kind of find that balance of faith, a community of faith in my life, um, but also not getting into really the worst the worst grievances, the worst excesses of organized religion. And honestly, I think organized religion, or any institution, if it's hard for us to self-reflect and humble ourselves as people, I mean, for an institution to do that is, you know, that that's like moving a mountain in some ways.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're so um, institutionalized, I guess
Yeah,
is the best word to
yeah,
use.
yeah, yeah. And when your salary is dependent on it, or when your sense of status is dependent on it, um, it's harder to reflect on it. Just it's at the end of the day, we're we can be very generous and we can be very selfish. So,
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? What are some themes that run throughout the book that you'd like to share with us?
well, I think you touched on some of that in terms of you know if someone is feeling shame in their life because of who they are, um, and I don't mean it can be everything from maybe because you're gay and you feel like that God doesn't love you, to the fact that you're not perfect, so God doesn't love you, or the fact that um, you make mistakes, because we all make those for sure, and some of us make really really terrible mistakes. So that would be one of the messages is just that no one is so far gone that God doesn't love them. um, the love is there, it's always there waiting for you. You have to embrace it, because the very nature of love requires freedom. If your love is out of something else besides free will, then it's coercion, or you know, I don't know. It's not. I think a healthy relationship for sure. Um, so the other thing I would say is be careful if anyone is leading with fear and whatever they're trying to sell you something, or they're trying to convince you of something. Just be very very cautious, because I think fear is about as far away from love as you can get. It's up there with shame in terms of you know buddies you don't want to hang out with, so to speak. Um, and then the other thing I would say is a message in the book is uh, to always question why. I mean, that is that is the beginning, of I think anyone's path of spirituality is you have to say to yourself, well, why is the world this way? Or why am I this way? Or, um, you know, why are things happening the way they are? And, again, asking ourselves why, that's another scary path that you can kind of that, for people to go down, because it may you may get answers or understandings that you weren't expecting or you weren't ready to deal with. So for example, in the book I talk about, my I again grew up in a very, um let's say patriotic, but solid middle class American family in the Midwest, and so I never thought that, our government would do not so good things, like take us into wars or overthrow governments or, try and censor folks that have different opinions. And so, again, while everyone may have different ideas about how that looks like, for me, again, that was another bit of awakening, because I'm like, oh, I've put my faith in something else, um, other than love. And so, again, I think that's the other thing, is just, why is a very it's a little word, but man, it's a powerful word when you begin to use it.
Is there a lesson or a feeling that you want readers and our listeners to take away from Finding God in Vegas?
Um, what I say to those that are that hear this or read this is that, please, I don't know. I don't know. I know in some ways I know less about life than I knew before my spiritual awakening. But what I do know is that every person is of value. Every person is loved by God. Every person deserves love in their life, and every person is capable of giving love in their life. And even when we go through those tragic events that tear at our heart, when, someone we love passes, or our pet passes, or whatever happens, you realize over time is that, we're capable of generating and giving so much love, but we limit ourselves for whatever reason. But if we take this path of love, um, I I know that the quality of your life and the quality of life for the people around you will improve greatly. So, I mean, at the end, I just want people to know that they are loved, and no one is too far gone that 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 love would reject them.
I love that. Thank you. Well,
Thank
my
you.
goodness, Dawn. I mean, you're such an inspiration. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about Finding God in Vegas?
Um, they can go to my website at donaldharoldyoung.com. I'm on all the social media channels too, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, etc. I'm also on Substack as well, where I publish and write weekly on kind of different topics. I have this huge interest in the intersection of, spirituality and culture, so that's usually what I write about. But they can find me there, and then the book is available in, um, uh, both print and digital, on Amazon and on all major platforms as well, Apple, Google, etc., etc. So there's my plug.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Thank you, Marianne. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Donald. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Finding God in Vegas, a Gen X Spiritual Awakening. Make sure to visit Don's website at donaldharoldyoung.com for more information and to be part of his community. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.